All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bet on It with Jerry and Jordan. I am Jerry. That guy over there is Jordan. Um, since we last talked to you, NBA playoffs have started. MLB is in full swing. The NHL is getting to the end of the season, and we're about a week from yesterday, away from the draft. So, how's your betting been this past couple weeks?
Pretty good. I think I talked about it before. I mean, primarily doing baseball. I haven't done much of the NBA playoff action. I mean, I've been following it closely, but I think that's going to be super competitive this year. And more than any other season, I really think it's up in the air and it's anybody's game, which makes it a really exciting postseason. But yeah, I've just been doing my two-legged parlays where I pick the over/under totals, and then I go with the winner as well. So it's been working pretty well. I talked a lot about how I look historically at batter versus pitchers. I mean, so far it's been pretty good. I'm at about 60% win rate, which is right where you need to be
Yeah.
profitable. So, yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it a few times to you. It's not like I'm winning $100 a day, but you chip away, you make 10, 15, $20 a day, and it starts to add up.
Yeah, it's the NBA is definitely in full playoff swing right now. It's like you said, it could be anybody's game, especially with these injuries too. We got
Mhm.
Devin Booker that's gonna probably be out the rest of the series. They said. Um, what else? It's another big injury. I forgot who it was, but I mean the Nets are back in full force, and they didn't look good the other
They
night.
stink.
Oh, the Bucks Middleton's out for a
Oh, I
couple
was
of games.
gonna say Luka's been out too,
Yeah,
but
Luka's been out, but they've been competitive. They're up, what, 2-1 in that series, or they're
yeah,
down.
Jalen Brunson's been a beast.
Yeah, he's taken over. And there's a chance that Luka comes back the next game.
Mhm.
We already know Booker's going to be out until at least the end of this round, and who knows if they even make it out of this round because New Orleans has been looking pretty good against them. They looked pretty good for a lot of the first game. I think they ended up losing by what, 15 points or so, and then
Yeah,
they
yep,
won
give or
game
take.
two.
Yep. I do
Richard,
have to say this just with baseball in general, because I won't have many opportunities to say this,
bet
but
against the Reds.
no, but well, yeah, probably. But the the Mets have the most wins in Major League Baseball, so I just need to say that out loud because in another 2 weeks when we talk again, well, actually, we'll be talking at the NFL draft, so we'll be talking before then. But for our own episode in 2 weeks, I won't be able to say that anymore. So I
No,
feel
you
the
don't
need to
think
say
so?
that
They
out
look
loud
good.
now.
They definitely look good. I mean, I've watched a little bit of them. Getting into like the betting part of things. Actually, I want to answer this. Richard Huffman has a question. We don't get many of those, so let's look into this question here. He says, "Is Panthers easy conference winner?" I'm If you're talking about the NHL, I could see them winning the conference. They got a pretty good team there. They made a couple trades at the trade deadline, and they've been pretty competitive all year. If you talk about the NFL, no, definitely not going to be. They're not even going to be second in their division, I don't think. But
They will be.
you think so?
I mean,
At
I
the,
think it depends at what happens with the quarterback position. If Sam Darnold's starting off the year for them, then absolutely not. But I mean, even if they take, well, we'll see with our mock draft who they're
yeah,
taking. But if they end up taking a QB, I mean, I would throw him in there personally. But well, actually, I don't know. Their offensive line's kind of terrible too. But if they find any sort of solution that's not Sam Darnold, I think they could finish in second. But if not,
it's
yeah,
it's it's going to be a 2.5 horse race for second. I mean, the Bucks probably
yeah.
finishing first, and then who knows? I mean, we got questionable quarterback play for all three of those teams between Winston, Sam Donald, or Willis, whoever it is, and then Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Um, Getting back to a little bit of the betting before we get into the main meat and potatoes of today's show. Um, I've been kind of following along with both baseball and basketball and a little bit of golf the past couple of weeks. For baseball, I've been liking the past 2 days actually, and they're low odds. I mean, but put together like a full slate parlay of every game on that slate and have no games go to overtime. I don't know if you've seen anybody, or not overtime, but extra innings. I don't know if you've seen anybody do that. It actually hit yesterday, and so far 2 for 2 today out of the 15 game slate. So um, if you put them all together, it's like plus 200 odds or something like that. So it's not like crazy, but I mean, what percent of games in the MLB go to extra innings? And obviously, yeah, one could kill the whole parlay, but it's so far the past 4 days, I think it's hit. I just started doing it yesterday, but the place that I got the idea from, a group on Facebook, the past 4 days it's hit. So little double, triple up right there. So I've been doing that. I've been I discovered live pitching. I don't know if I told you that last time or not, or if we were doing if baseball's on the last time we talked, but or if I told you through a message, but live pitch betting, that's been pretty fun too. I was
Mhm.
it's up and down. I mean, and but the best thing is like to have the game going on either on your TV or in the background. So you're not just guessing at what it is, even though it all is just a guess. But I've been having a little bit of fun with that. Outside of that, the NBA, it's been up and down. I mean, I'm sure we all thought the Suns were going to sweep. Uh,
Yeah, they screwed you a little bit.
well, I didn't bet that, but I'm sure we all thought the who was it? The Bucks were going to sweep too because Chicago hasn't been good against top tier talent this year.
I was just looking at the other question. Sorry, I got
Yeah, me
distracted.
too. Looking to bet on NFL champion Bucks, Rams, Chiefs. Should I sprinkle a little bit on each team? Who else has a chance? For champion, I mean, your top like 5 or 6 teams that have the best odds are honestly probably the top 5 or 6 teams that you'd want to bet on, but they obviously have the lowest odds, the lowest payout. What I would probably do is maybe look to parlay a couple division winners, um, or or even the conference winners if you can, or as far as like because there's probably about 4 or 5 comfortable division winners that I would say, and that's the other 3 divisions that you're kind of up in the air on, then you just kinda go with your gut or maybe do those separately. But, like, even, I see you mentioned the Chiefs. I'm on the Chargers train. So, like, if I were to put something together, I'd go with, like, the Bills, the Bucks, the Chargers. I'd probably throw the Rams in there too. San Fran. I'm on the fence between the Rams and San Francisco. It's basically between those 2 teams. But I might go Rams. They seem to be putting it all together, trying to run it back a little bit more than what San Francisco's doing, especially with all the Debo drama that they got going on over there. And we don't even know who's starting Week 1, even though most likely it's going to be Lance. And then if it is Lance, it's essentially a rookie season for him. So, but like take like 4 or 5 of the 8 divisions, take 4 or 5 of them, and maybe throw a little parlay like that together, and kind of sit on that for a division winner. Anything else you got to add there?
Yeah, I mean, doing something like that I think is interesting because I mean, if you throw in, we'll say the Bills, Bucks, Packers, Rams. I mean, I kind of like those odds, and I don't want to say it's easy, but in terms of Super Bowl champions, the one that I still like that's under the radar, they're middle of the pack or even lower depending on where you're betting, is still the Colts, and I'm not saying 100% that they're going to make it far, but I mean, they have a great offensive line, their defense plays well. Matt Ryan uh, could potentially be the missing piece. I think he's
Yeah,
got a lot to prove. People
they need
have
to get a
kind of
wide
been
receiver.
yeah, and I'm sure this is a deep class. They'll address that at some point, but I mean, people have hated on him quite a bit, and they're like, "Yeah, that's not the missing piece for the Colts." I mean, the guy has been to the Super Bowl before, and he was within arm's reach of winning one. And
Yeah,
I would argue that this Colts team is a more well-rounded team than that Falcons team that went to the Super Bowl. So this is a team that has, in my opinion, championship aspirations. And a lot of, and I just looked it up quickly. The one FanDuel that I'm on, it looks like they have like the 15th-ish best odds, or like right in the middle of the pack. So it kind of depends on where you're going, but I think that they are good value for where they're at right now if you're looking for a more under the radar one.
yeah. Just a couple middle, well, not really middle of the road. They're towards the top. They're in the top 10, top 8 of odds, but still give you a decent payout. I already mentioned the Chargers, but the Broncos are up there too. They got a complete defense, complete offense. Brought in Russell Wilson. The Browns. I mean, we don't know if Watson's going to miss any time this year, but it's kind of leaning towards no. I've seen some things going into 2023 where he could play the whole year this year. They got a top 5 offensive line. Their defense is pretty good. They gave up nothing as far as like playable players in the trade for Deshaun Watson. So they're pretty much bringing back the whole defense that they had last year. The offense arguably got better. I mean, yeah, they lost Odell in the middle of the year last year. They lost Landry, but they brought in Amari Cooper. Um, who knows? I mean, with we already talked about that the wide receiver class is pretty deep. They don't have a first this year, but they could definitely pick up another wide receiver. But they still have um, wow, Anthony Schwartz was the rookie last year, and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
People, yep.
So, and a couple tight ends there too. So the Browns are another one. Those are all that's plus 1,600 for the Chargers. This is on DraftKings. Plus 1,600 for the Broncos. Plus 1,700 for the Browns. And then last year's runner-up, the Bengals, who
Mhm.
heavily approved that offensive line, they're still down there too. They're plus 1,800. Joe Burrow's got the playoff experience. They got a much better offensive line this year. They brought in some pieces on the defense. They signed some of their own guys on the defense. They didn't really lose anybody. Who they lose? A tight end, and then they kind of replaced that tight end already with somebody that's equally as good. So they're plus 1,800. So a couple of those teams right in the middle. I mean, basically just the Bills and the Bucks are under 4-digit odds. The rest of them are all, even the Chiefs are plus 1,000, Packers are plus 1,000 um, for for the whole for the Super Bowl winner. So throw it on there. The Raiders could be another one. I mean, they're in that tough division, but they're plus 3,500. Throw a few bucks on them. They completely revamped that team too. They got a high powered offense. They brought in some strong defensive players too. So you definitely, I mean, they're going to have to go through the gauntlet of the AFC West, but they um they could definitely make some noise there too. And then I don't know what you said the odds for FanDuel was for the Colts, but I got them here at 2,200.
22. Yep.
Yep. All right. Perfect. So there's definitely a good mix of teams there that you could throw. I mean, even if you throw, I don't know how big of a gambler you are or what you're using, but 20 bucks a team, 15 bucks a team, 25 bucks a team. That's still a good payout. What is it? It's 425 bucks on a plus 1,600. So that was the lowest odds of the ones that we mentioned. So anything else would be even more than that. So um, yeah, definitely look into stuff like that if you want to do individual winners. Throw 4 of them out there, and yeah, obviously 3 of them at the worst, 3 of them are going to lose, or at the best, 3 of them are going to lose. One of them wins. You're still making money. All right. So yeah, we talked a little bit about next week is the NFL draft. I think Jeff is going to be posting the schedule. If he's not, we could definitely look into posting the schedule. I think we have who's going to be on, but Jeff and Ryan are going to be opening it up on Thursday night. They're going to take care of the first couple hours, and then me and Jordan are going to come on and do basically the back half of the first round, and then it's going to be I forgot who's going to be on the rest of the weekend, but for the most part, if you guys watch or continuously watch the shows that this page puts out, you're going to see some of the same guys covering the draft, and they're doing all live coverage for the whole weekend. So Sunday, if you want to hang out with them during the later rounds of the draft, come on and talk to them, chat just in the chat box, just like Richard did today. They're going to be on for rounds 4 through 7. They'll be on for rounds 2 and 3 on Saturday or whatever day it is. And then was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right?
Thursday. Yes.
Thought it went into Sunday. Didn't it go into Sunday a couple years ago?
It used to.
Oh, okay. All right. Whatever. And then yeah, so we'll be talking a little bit of draft. So today, with that being said, me and Jordan both have our first round mock. We're gonna basically just go over who we think picks 1 through 32, who we think each team is going to pick. Jordan added some trades in there. I did not put any trades in there, so
Oh,
I know mine is a little less realistic, but I kind of just went with if these teams stayed where they're at. Obviously, with big names like Debo on the trading block, we could see the 49ers slip into the first round possibly via trade. With Kadarius Toney now his name being thrown out there, we could possibly see the Giants pick up a second or a third rounder somewhere there if they get a decent deal there. I don't think he's going to go for a first. Do you think he'll get a first?
Probably not. No, I
No.
mean, unless it's a late one.
Yeah. And then so we'll run down who we think each team is going to take. Maybe throw a little fantasy implications on the offensive players as we get to them. We'll we'll kind of remind you on where some of these teams picked up their extra picks as we go through them, and then that's it. So let's get it started. Um, Jaguars are on the clock first. Do you have them staying at 101, or you have them picking or do you have them staying at 101, or do you have them trading it away?
Oh, I don't. I'm not that crazy. I have them keeping it. I only have two trades. I mean, even that's probably unrealistic, but you got to throw a little bit of excitement in there. You want to share a screen, or are we just gonna talk about it?
I don't know if I know how to share a screen.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, you talk about your pick first, then.
Well, you figure it out. Okay, so it looks like we're going the same position, but a different player. I got them taking Aiden Hutchinson, the edge rusher out of. There you go, Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher out of Michigan. He's pretty much been the consensus 101 for. I mean, I guess you can't really say that there's a consensus 101. We just talked about this a couple of days ago about how there's could be any one of possibly four players going with the first overall pick. I honestly, I was kind of back and forth between Hutchinson or Evan Neal, the offensive tackle. But I decided, I mean, looking at just the roster and their depth chart, they need help all over, but their defense is probably worse than their offense right now. And outside of Josh Allen on the defense, they really don't have anybody back there. So I got them going with the college football's pretty much consensus number one pick for most teams in that spot at Aiden Hutchinson.
Now, if it was me, I would be selecting Aiden Hutchinson, but this is the Jaguars that we're talking about. I mean, a few months ago, it looked like they were going to be leaning offensive tackle. They've shored that up a little bit this offseason, so I don't think that's such a sure thing anymore. There's been a lot of rumblings that Trayvon Walker's getting number one overall hype. I think this comes down to Aiden Hutchinson being a much safer play, but I think Trayvon Walker has potential to be much more if he ever lives up to his athletic profile. So I think they go with a little bit of a riskier, more upside pick here. This is a team, if they want to take it to the next level, I don't think at this point they need safe. And not to say Aiden Hutchinson's probably going to be a Pro Bowl caliber player, but Trayvon Walker's upside, and it's kind of what a lot of people believe is even greater than that. So I have them going a little riskier, a little more upside, and I don't know. I tend to buy some of the hype around players when they start talking about it because I think where there's smoke, there's fire. So I buy into it a little bit, and that's why I have them going number one.
All right, and I guess I'll just piggyback off of that because my number two is your number one, and that's going to be Trayvon Walker. And this is a name that has been tied to the Lions the past couple, probably past week and a half, past 2 weeks, and he's a guy that is going to go out there and bite you in the kneecaps, as Dan Campbell would want. So I mean, you kind of already touched on him. It's there. I mean, this draft is pretty edge heavy, as you could see, and I'll spoil it. My third overall pick is also an edge rusher, so
Oh, dang.
pretty edge heavy right off the top. And I mean, that's probably the third most important position on the football field behind quarterback and left tackle. And so I think that these teams go out and get their star edge rushers and try to get to the quarterback.
I'm excited about this because we have our little mock draft competition that we have going on. We have a whole point system that we made. And I think that we're going to be a lot different this entire mock draft, which just makes it kind of fun. So I have it flip flop. So Aiden Hutchinson second. I actually think that he fits in even more so with the Lions philosophy. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it just depends. I think these guys are going one and two unless somebody trades up to get Malik Willis. So I envision it going this way, either the way you have it or the way that I have it. So I don't think there's much to say. I think the Lions need a lot of I mean, they need an edge rusher. It's their biggest need. It's the best player on the board. It just makes sense.
What about the Lions going Malik Willis? Any thoughts there? Did that cross your mind doing this?
A little bit, but the thing that's still, I just with their second first round pick and this it, being a class where none of the QBs are sure things, I just see them going in that direction with the last pick. Spoiler alert.
All right. Me too, actually. So third pick, like I said, I already told you the position, but it is going to be the other projected number one pick, Kayvon Thibodeau. Probably going to be butchering that name until I hear the professionals saying it on Thursday night. But another one that could easily go one, two, or three. I mean, Trayvon Walker kind of just snuck into the top three picks over the
Mhm.
past couple weeks. It was basically between Hutchinson and Thibodeau for pretty much all the draft season so far. But Texans, I mean, they're another team that has needs all over the place. I personally don't, and I don't think there is a quarterback, even Willis going this high, but I don't think there's a quarterback really worth taking up this high. But I personally don't want the Texans to do that. I think they should go another year with Mills. We talked about it before when we talked about the AFC South a couple episodes ago. But I think that they should kind of just beef up that defense a little bit more. I mean, they need everything. I mean, they could easily go wide receiver here, take the first wide receiver off the board. They could go Willis and get the quarterback of the future if they don't believe in Mills. They can go with the top corner. Looks like what you got, or the top safety. But again, edge rusher very important. So I see them go in that direction there.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a position where to me, they can kind of take the top guy on their board. I think historically speaking, Lovie Smith's defenses require a shutdown corner, which is what Sauce Gardner is expected to be. So I think that they find that guy, they start to build a Lovie Smith looking defense, even if he's not the long term answer at the head coach position. I mean, you would like to think that they're at least going to try to build a team around what he envisions. I mean, as much as he feels like he's almost just a lame duck coach, I'd like to think that's not the case. So I have him going Sauce, which is a little bit of a different direction. I don't see many places going that way, but I think with what they want to build defensively, it makes sense.
All right. And then I have the Jets going with your third overall pick here with Sauce Gardner, Ahmad Gardner, cornerback, another name that has been tied to the team. Some of these picks are gonna be what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to be chalk. They're going to be picks that you've seen in a bunch of different mocks, but I'm not just going to go out on a limb just because somebody else picked that player there. I'm not going to pick him there. I think that Sauce Gardner, if he does fall to 4, which I mean, that's definitely the right terminology there, falling to 4, because he could easily go at 2 and 3. But if he falls to 4, the Jets are there. We've seen them take cornerbacks high before. Darrell Revis was probably one of their better quarterbacks in their team's history. Ahmad Gardner could be that next guy, shutdown corner. It's got to play against a couple or a trio of young quarterbacks in that division. Josh Allen, Tua, if he could figure it out, and Mac Jones. So the Jets, they're gonna want to take get those turnovers and try to stay competitive in the AFC East.
Yeah, and I have where'd you have him going? Number three. Yeah, just to pick a go. Kayvon Thibodeau, edge rusher going here. They need an edge rusher. I think Robert Sala needs a lot of help along that defensive line. I mean, he had the luxury of having such a wonderful one in San Francisco, so I think he tries to beef it up here.
All right. I think I went with another edge here.
More edges. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, they're
there we go.
everywhere.
Jermaine Johnson, another edge
Are we gonna
rusher.
have one pick the same? Holy cow.
You don't have him? Oh, I think we went back to back again though. Jermaine Johnson, another edge rusher. He's up there in talent. Giants again, another one. I mean, a lot of these teams in the top 10, top 12 are teams that need a lot of work. You got the Giants, who are pretty awful on defense. I mean, they have some of the tools on offense. They just have to get them all together, kind of figure out if Daniel Jones is the right guy for damn, I can't remember his name. Why do I always draw blanks? But whatever. Um, the defense definitely needs a lot of help. They are this is the next best edge rusher that's out there. It's a little bit of a drop off. I mean, even Jermaine Johnson is a little bit of drop off of the other three, but between Jermaine Johnson and the next guy, it's quite a bit of a drop off. So I think they get him here, and then they pick again in a couple picks.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the next edge rusher, I have Jermaine Johnson coming up fairly soon, but after that, I struggled to find a good spot for an edge rusher. So I think it's a little bit till you see another edge rusher from me after Jermaine Johnson. But the Giants' offensive line over the last few years has been one of the worst in the entire NFL. If they don't take an offensive lineman at 5 or 7, I have no idea what they're doing at this point. And I think in this situation here, if they have their chance to pick any offensive lineman, which at number 5 they would. I mean, that's a huge luxury. This is a great offensive line class. So if they have their pick of the litter at number 5, I think they would be crazy to not pick whoever they're the most comfortable with. So that's the direction I have them going in.
All right. Do I have the Panthers going quarterback at 6? Nope. I got them taking the offensive line, Evan Neal. It seems like this coach is not really high on Sam Darnold, but he doesn't wanna necessarily give up on Sam Darnold just yet. He specifically traded for him last year. Part of the trade was that they had to pick up the fifth-year option, so which they did, but keeping him around for another year. This probably isn't gonna be the highest that the Panthers are gonna be picking over the next year or 2, so even if they fail this year in the weaker but still weak AFC or NFC South, they're still probably going to be picking in the top 10 and they could get their quarterback next year. But right now, I think they need to protect whoever's back there, whether it's Sam Darnold or they end up picking a quarterback later on in the draft. But I got them taking Evan Neal.
Yeah, I agree that their offensive line stinks, but I think that Matt Rule is fighting for his job right now. He has a lot of say in the player personnel decisions, and it feels like they need a splash and just a little jolt of energy in that building. I read a lot from Panthers beat writers where during Malik Willis's pro day that management and Matt Rule were skipping around and giddy. So, I mean, you can read what you want into that, but I do believe that they need a little bit of life. I think that with Matt Rule say and player personnel decisions that I think they'll go out there and get their guy. And realistically, this could potentially extend his life as head coach. Potentially, I say, because I really don't know if it should be extended. But if they go out and get his quarterback, maybe it gives them an extra year or two to really work with Willis if they believe in him. But yeah, I think this is a team. They've spent a lot of draft capital on the defensive side of the ball. They were much improved last season. So, it's not, I definitely don't see it going in that direction, but I think they go out there and they get their guy.
All right. Everything that you said about Evan Neal at pick 5, just repeat it for pick 7 because I agree they do need to go out there and get an offensive lineman in this draft. Unfortunately, they don't get the top guy at Evan Neal. They get the next best guy at I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Ikonu.
Icky.
But yeah, they definitely need to beef up that offensive line. Again, they're another team that possibly could go quarterback with Malik Willis or whoever else, and then they pick again early in the second, I believe. So they could definitely see if any one of them drops. But um, I think they're going to try to protect Daniel Jones there. This is the pick that they got as, as part of the trade up for the Bears last year for Justin Fields. So that's why they're picking again here.
Yeah, I mean, we're not much different, honestly. I have Jermaine Johnson going to the Giants just at number 7. So I do believe with these two picks, if they hold on to them, they're going to go offensive line and edge. Obviously, you can differ on which direction they go in. I think that if they, especially with the risk that the Panthers take an offensive lineman, if they want to get their guy on the line, I think that number 5 makes sense. But yeah, Jermaine Johnson's the best edge rusher left on the board. He's getting a lot of top 10 hype now. So I think that's the direction they go. And I think under the radar, this could be where we see George Karlaftis go. He's one of the guys that I really like. And after this offseason, he's been shooting up boards. And I think he could potentially surprise and sneaking higher than anybody has him. But realistically, it's more so going to be Jermaine Johnson here.
I think I got him coming up in a few picks too. I'd imagine you do too because we're pretty close. The next one, I think everybody is in agreement. Actually, I don't even know if you are, but I think most people are in agreement that the Falcons do need a wide receiver. So it was basically choosing which wide receiver it is. Garrett Wilson, although he's not my personal favorite in this draft, I think he's high on a lot of people's boards, a lot of professionals' boards, and he's got the speed, he's got the route running. He's been one of the better wide receivers in all of college this year for Ohio State. I mean, I knew that I was going wide receiver at this pick. I just didn't know which way I wanted to go. I didn't know if they wanted to dip back into the Alabama wide receiver tree with after having Ridley there and Julio Jones and all them. But I decided to go into Ohio State and grab Garrett Wilson for them.
I did not have them taking a wide receiver because I hate going chalk. But no, I mean, I mean that's a part of it. But I think that the Falcons had the 28th ranked offensive line last year. I think this is a deep wide receiver class, and I think you're gonna see some of the receivers slip because of that. Because people are gonna go, especially these guys that have earlier second round picks. I think you're gonna see them go, I'll grab a top end guy in the second round. Why waste? And it's not wasting because Garrett Wilson I think is gonna be a great receiver, but why spend that first round capital when you can get T Higgins in the early second round? So Icky, I think, is a guy that like a month ago, I saw some people who thought he was going to go number one to the Jaguars. And here we are, some people having him slipping outside the top 10. I still think he has a lot of upside. I think this is a huge need for the Falcons. So I have them going the boring route.
All right. Next up, we have the second trade that was made in real life. Um, this was the pick that the Seahawks got in exchange for Russell Wilson. I have them, and this is a pick that we could see them go with the first quarterback off the board. Unfortunately, that is not from me. I got them going and protecting the current quarterback that they got back in that Russell
Dang.
Wilson trade. Oh, we finally agree. The current quarterback that they got back in that Russell Wilson trade, Drew Lock, trying to protect him as much as they can. I mean, they outside of the offensive line, the offense can actually potentially move the ball. I mean, Drew Lock, he's not great at all, but they got a pair of wide receivers. They brought in Drew Lock's tight end as part of that trade too. A couple running backs who, yeah, they're always hurt, but when they are on the field, they're actually pretty good. I mean, Rashad Penny had a really great stretch last year for fantasy and for real life. Chris Carson is back again, and he's been when he's on the field, he's a top 15, top 10 running back. It's just staying on the field. That's the problem for him. But they got to protect whoever's back there, whether it's Penny or Carson and whoever they decide to put at quarterback between Drew Lock and Geno Smith. So I got Charles Cross, the offensive tackle.
Dang, do you have Malik Willis going in the first round? I no, I mean, I think it is interesting to see where these quarterbacks go because no matter how strong a class is, you always see people reach or trading up. And I mean, I think it would be tough if the Seahawks are sitting there and Malik Willis is there. I don't know if I could mock Willis falling past them. And I've seen a lot of people doing that, but I don't know. I think it would make too much sense, even though they have other holes. But yeah, I mean, everything you just said, the Seahawks had a really terrible offensive line or this past season. Defensively, they have a few holes, but I don't see a lot of value based on their positional needs there. So they go out there and they grab the best tackle available.
All right. Next, we got the Jets. This Jets pick came from the Jamal Adams trade a couple years ago. Um, Still paying for it, and I have them going with the second wide receiver off the board, Drake London. Drake London offers a lot of size. He offers a big red zone target for for Zach Wilson to throw to. I mean, Elijah Moore, we saw a nice glimpse of him last year before he got hurt, but they definitely need another guy to pair up with Elijah Moore. They it's another team that could go any which way here. We already have them. Well, I have them taking the corner at pick 4. You had them. I forgot who you had them taking. You know, taking the edge rusher. So I mean, I guess
Mhm.
I could go with the next edge rusher here, or even on the offensive line, they could definitely use some help there to protect Zach Wilson. But I think they got to get him some weapons. They brought in a couple tight ends in free agency this year, but they did lose Jamison Crowder. They brought back Braxton Berrios, but they need a big red zone target, a guy that could come down with the football over those 5'10", 5'11" corners. And Drake London is that guy in this draft. And as much as I wouldn't want to face him 2 times a year, it would be nice to catch a couple games with him in a Jets uniform.
All right, Jerry. Who's my number one wide receiver off the board?
Ooh, your number 1 wide receiver is going to be Treylon Burks.
Yeah, you think so? Nope. I got
Uh,
Jamison Williams going 10, which is much higher than a lot of people have him going. I think the Jets all off season have been aggressively pursuing big time speed down the field threats. I think once they lost out on Tyreek Hill, that Jamison Williams could potentially be their fallback option here. Every year, it seems like we're a little surprised by the way that the wide receiver class falls. Last year, I think it was a little surprising that Waddle went as high as he did. Going back a few years, Henry Ruggs went much higher than people think. Speed kills in today's NFL. People get enamored and drawn in by it, and I think the Jets fall into that trap a little bit. Not to say Jamison Williams doesn't have a lot of upside, but I have him going a little higher just based on, we both agree that's going to be a receiver. Is Drake London probably a better fit for what they need? Probably, but does that mean that's the direction they're going to go in? Probably not.
yeah, never know with those New York teams. The Washington Commanders, the first year under their new name, picking here at number 11 with the first pick of the Washington Commanders uh, regime. They are taking Derek Stingley, the cornerback out of LSU. This is my second corner off the board. I personally think he is my number 1 corner in this draft. Hoping he drops a little bit further, or my team trades up for him. But
You wish.
yeah, I do. I don't want them to give up too much though. But the Commanders, they seem to have found a patch there with quarterback, with trading for Carson Wentz, so maybe they could get a couple years out of him. Um, they, I mean, they got decent. They could definitely use another wide receiver, so that's another option here. Out next to Terry McLaurin, they brought back J.D. McKissick to go along with Antonio Gibson.
Yeah,
Yeah, why can't you ever help me out when I'm struggling here?
because I think it's hilarious.
Because you know that I know these names. I just, hey, don't do that.
Okay, come on.
You're showing the guy at the top when you go over the black.
Well,
Um,
stop doing it. Stop peeking.
but yeah, I mean, going with the second best corner, or arguably the first best corner in this draft for the Commanders, would be a good way for them to go. There's other needs too. I mean, they got a pretty strong defensive line, so they don't need to go there. They could probably pick up the top linebacker in this draft, but I think they go in the secondary.
Yeah, and I have them going in the secondary just in a different direction. I do like Stingley too. I think it's going to be interesting to see where he falls. If he didn't have that injury, I mean, he potentially could have been a top 5 pick, similar to Sauce. We might be talking about them being reversed this year. So I do think that's a nice, smart pick on their end too. I have him going Kyle Hamilton. He's been slipping quite a bit in mocks recently, but the talent is there. Washington needs, I mean, just really anything they can get in the secondary at this point. So Stingley, I think, is a good option, but I had him going with it, and it depends what their board looks like. But I think Kyle Hamilton would be a good fit as well.
Ooh, I'm excited about your next one. You got a trade coming up.
I do have a trade.
I do not have a trade coming up, and I actually have back-to-back corners here. I got the Vikings going with Trent McDuffie. That is a huge area of concern for them. Um, the secondary, they've kind of retooled the defensive line this offseason, but they don't really need a lot on the offensive side. They could probably use another wide receiver opposite of uh, Justin Jefferson with Adam Thielen getting a little bit older, but KJ Osborne definitely showed up a little bit last year, so it's not a necessity, not something that they need to go at pick 112 here. The secondary is probably the weakest part of their entire team, and so I got them going with Trent McDuffie.
Yes, and as you mentioned, I do have a trade here. I have the Saints trading up, taking Kenny Pickett. I think the Saints are a good target and a good team to potentially target a quarterback. I think once you get in this range, teams that really want to go up and get their guy start getting nervous, and the Saints do have some extra draft capital where they could make a move to move up. So, do I know whether or not Kenny Pickett's that guy? No, he'd be my second quarterback off the board. I do think that he has a little bit of upside. So, I have the Saints trading up. I didn't, go as far as to predict what other capital would be included in that. I just switched their picks for right now. Do I think because the Saints have a second first round pick, do I think that pick's going to be involved? I mean, maybe. We've seen crazier things happen, but I have the Saints keeping that pick for right now. But they go up, they get their guy. This is a team with a strong defense, a strong offensive line. They could potentially, they have a little bit of a hole in the offensive line, but they could fill that with their other pick. Maybe we'll see when we get there. But yeah, so I have them trading up, getting their guy in Kenny Pickett here.
All right. We got another team coming up with their second pick of the first round. This pick is from the Browns for Deshaun Watson going to the Texans. So we already kind of touched on them a little bit as far as some players that or some positions that they need. And it looks like we both agree here. Trevor Penning, the
Oh,
offensive tackle, definitely need help on that offensive line. He's the next best tackle on the board. Good spot for him there at 113, especially with some teams coming up that could use the offensive line help. Texans grab him there at 113.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say. This is a terrible offensive line last year. It's going to have to be a position they addressed in the first round or early in the draft, at least. They might be another team with the potential. Actually, this is a good example of a team with a high second round pick who because I've seen a few people mock a receiver to them, but if I'm them, I mean, I'm taking one probably with my early second. If we did a second round mock, I would 100% have them going in that direction. But no matter if Davis Mills is their future, if it's another guy they take next year, they need to protect them, and it's a huge hole for them right now. So that's the direction they should go.
All
We're
right.
gonna agree on this pick, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players in this draft. He had an excellent combine. Does it sound like we're agreeing?
Probably.
All right. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle. One of the most exciting picks in this draft. He's a beast of a man, but he's fast. Can get to the quarterback. Ravens. I mean, for as long as we've known them, back in 2000 and back in the Ray Lewis days and Ed Reed days, they love their defense. They build around that defense. Um, I I mean, we've seen them go many times in the first round to try to get help for Lamar Jackson. We've obviously they're a run heavy offense. I don't think a running back is going to go here, especially with the couple running backs that they got coming back off of injury this year, and Lamar there to take some heat off the running backs too with his legs. I think that unless they're gonna throw some offensive linemen at this pick at 114, I think they're going strictly defense, and I think that they take the number one defensive tackle in this draft, Jordan Davis.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that though, because they could go offensive line here depending on how the board shakes up. In both of our cases, we have a lot of what do we both have? Four offensive linemen going to this point. One, two, three. Yeah. So I mean, if the top four guys come off the board and by pick 14, I can't see them reaching. The Ravens historically do not reach on players, and this feels like just a perfect spot for Jordan Davis. It fits a need for them. It's good value. I trust me, I was trying to fit him into the top 10, and I still think that he could potentially go, to one of those teams like the Jets that have multiple first round picks, maybe even the Giants if they want to take a crack at him with their second. But yeah, it's just if he falls to this point, he's going to the Ravens.
All right, I think I had a little bit of a typo there. I This pick is from the Dolphins, as part of a trade from last year. I believe the Dolphins threw this in there so they can move up to get Waddle. I think I had Devonta Smith in there, but this is now the Eagles pick. They are going to be going in the secondary here with Kyle Hamilton, safety. You already talked a little bit about him for for the Commanders up there. I mean, we could. This is another team that we could see, and I mean, they have another pick coming up too, but we've definitely in a lot of mocks we've seen it talked about for them to go with a wide receiver. But I think it's either going to be in the secondary or wide receiver. So 50-50 shot. I'm going with the secondary here with Kyle Hamilton.
All right. What direction did I go in? Oh, right, edge rusher. Yep, there's my next edge rusher finally. So, yeah, it's a big need for the Eagles. I think with one of their picks, they're going to end up taking one. I think this is a good spot for Karlaftis, who has a lot of upside. So, fits in need, seems like pretty good value for him. I think it's a pretty solid pick here.
All right. Next, we got I have the Saints on the clock. You got the Vikings as part of a trade. This was from the Eagles trade that they swapped a couple picks earlier or last month. I have them going with.
Yay,
There we go. There's my
quarterback.
first quarterback, Malik Willis. So kind of have the same idea with them picking a quarterback. You have them picking Kenny Pickett a little bit earlier. My first quarterback fell a little bit, so I think the Saints are. I mean, outside of a couple teams, like we said, I mean, there's the Lions, there's the Commanders, potentially even the Vikings or the Texans that all could use a quarterback potentially. I think the Saints next up on the list, take the first quarterback here in the draft.
Yep. I like it. Yeah, I have the Vikings swapping with the Saints here. The Vikings, you had them taking corner as well. It's probably their biggest need at this point. So if Derek Stingley falls to this point, he is not going any further.
All right. So for the Chargers, I got a little bit of a head scratcher here. Um,
I'm gonna
it's
let
more
you
of a
go first.
it's a luxury. They definitely have a few bodies at this position. They re-signed one of their own this offseason. They drafted a high potential guy last year, but I mean, you got one of the top quarterbacks in the league, one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. You want to give him some more help. This is actually a guy, he's already been mentioned. They can sit on him for a little bit. I don't think he's going to redshirt his rookie year, but he's definitely not going to be ready at the beginning of the year coming off that ACL injury.
Dang.
And that gives them it gives them the luxury to move on from Keenan, or if they need to trade Mike Williams, or even just throw him in there in the slot. Jamison Williams, wide receiver.
Dang, you go. I mean, this is a team, and they addressed this last year with Rashawn Slater really helping solidify that offensive line. This is a team just based on their offseason, doesn't have a ton of needs now.
You got little T-Rex
Um,
arms, huh?
yeah, T-Rex arms. But they could potentially use somebody on the inside. The nice thing, or even at right tackle as well. There's a rotating door there last year, but Tyler Linderbaum, versatile guy, probably going to be a guard most likely in the NFL. But once again, like I said, they kind of need that versatility along the offensive line. So uh, it's it's still a position of need. This is about the range that I've seen him go in here. I like the versatility, so I think it makes sense for him here.
All right. So remember when I said I had that 50-50 shot between cornerback or defensive back and wide receiver?
I remember that.
Here's the other half of the 50-50. I got them going Traylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. He's personally my second favorite wide receiver in the draft. I'm not saying he's the second best, but he's my second favorite. Um, I I hope he lands somewhere. I mean, personally, I don't want him to go to the Eagles because I want him to have a lot of passing opportunities and touchdowns and yardage and catches and stuff like that. But for as an NFL move, I think Traylon Burks or a wide receiver in the spot is the way to go.
Yep, I have him going wide receiver as well, going with a big body, which I think they could use. So Drake London going to the Eagles here. I don't have much to say. They have quite a few picks. I'd expect one of them to be spent on a wide receiver. It really depends on what their preference is. It seems to me like a big bodied guy would make sense for him to be a nice red zone threat. So I have Drake London.
All right, and now we have the Saints up again after the pick swap that they had with the Eagles, and we got some back-to-back wide receivers here. This is a guy that kind of
Nice.
took the combine by storm. That fast 40 time. He's got elusive route running skills. Um, He's a guy that I could see them pairing with Michael Thomas to be a nice 1-2 punch there. The Saints definitely need a wide receiver, whether it's Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett or Jameis Winston. I mean, you got Michael Thomas who hasn't played in a year and a half, and the last time he did play, he was a little banged up. And then that's it. I mean, they've had uh, guys left and right coming in and having decent games, but nothing really to sustain over a full season. I think Olavi could come in, and even if they move on from Michael Thomas after this year or 2 years or whatever it is, Olavi could be their number one there.
So this is probably my biggest head scratcher of the draft, especially at 19. This is just based off of a little research and what I've seen. There's a lot of speculation. Well, it looks like the Saints with one of these picks really want to make sure they're replacing Teron Armstead. That's a huge loss for them. Him going over to Miami leaves a huge hole for them at left tackle. Um, Based on what I've read and what I have seen from people that cover the Saints, they seem to really like Tyler Smith, who's a offensive tackle from Tulsa, so little school out there. But so it's a little more of a speculation pick based on what I've read and from people that honestly are closer to the situation than me. And would an offensive tackle be a direction I would go in here? Potentially, if they're not sold with who their left tackle is and they end up getting who they think is their franchise quarterback, I mean, they definitely should go out and get a franchise tackle as well. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and take a little bit of a chance and go with Tyler Smith, who is a real
Tyler
person.
sounds made up. All right. I not only have one quarterback in the first round, I got a second quarterback in the first round. I got
Yay.
the opposite of what you got. Steelers, Kenny Pickett, quarterback. Um, he could be a guy that sits behind Mitch for a year, or he can, if they really feel that high on him, that he could start day one. But Kenny Pickett, the next best, or on the board, the next best quarterback that's out there. And I think a lot of mocks have Malik Willis. I mean, maybe not anymore, but just earlier ones have Malik Willis going there at 20. A lot of people just across the industry have a quarterback going there. So if Willis is gone, Pickett's the next one up.
Yeah, and I think that'd be crazy, but I mean, it could happen. And I've talked about it when we talked about the Steelers, their offensive line is embarrassing right now. If they get a franchise quarterback without addressing the offensive line first, they should be embarrassed of themselves. But so, with that being said, I have them going offensive lineman Kenyon Green. Another guy with some versatility, could play inside or outside. He is the highest guy that I have on my board. So this is a situation where, do I think it's good value for Kenyon Green? Probably not. He's probably maybe 5 to 10 picks away based on where he stands on most people's big boards. But I think they have to reach on whoever's number one on their board. I think it's just such a need for him. So I have him going in that direction.
All right. Next up for me, well, for both of us, is the Patriots. My original thought was going to be going wide receiver here. I decided against it. I decided that They need to replace the two corners that they lost just within the past calendar year. They lost J.C. Jackson, they lost Stephon Gilmore, so they got to get somebody in there in the secondary. I got them bringing in Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson.
Yeah, no, that's a good one, and mine's similar rationale. Um, Dante Hightower currently is a free agent. Don't know if he's going to return. It feels like with him gone, Matthew Judon being a free agent, being gone as well, it feels like they need a new leader on that defense. If you read the scouting reports on Devin Lloyd, that's the number one thing a lot of scouts say about him is this is going to be a guy that comes in and he's a leader on whatever team drafts him. So I think he kind of becomes a new face of that Patriots defense. It fills a need for them. They get the number one linebacker on the board. They get a little bit of versatility too. He's got some speed where he can move around, cover guys. So he seems like a Patriots kind of linebacker, and it fills a need for him. So I have him going Devin Lloyd here.
All right. Packers, we might be agreeing on the position. I'm not sure if we have the same player here. We don't because I already picked him
Yeah.
somewhere. I got Christian Watson here,
Mhm.
small school kid, wide receiver, going to the Packers. I think it's inevitable that they're going with a wide receiver at one of these two picks. Um, Unfortunately for them, on my board, I got about what, five gone already. So we're kind of dipping
Yeah.
into the tier two of wide receivers. I think I still have another one or two still on in the first round here too, um, but yeah, I think that they're taking a wide receiver with one of these picks, getting a little bit of help for Aaron Rodgers in his final years as a Packer and in the NFL. Big body Watson, he's up there in size, and I think he can be good with Aaron Rodgers for a year or two.
Yeah, I feel terrible about this pick because I do believe the Packers are taking wide receiver. I really believe that Garrett Wilson will probably go much higher than this, and it's probably the a pick I'm the least confident about because he's the number one receiver on most people's board. This is a guy I wouldn't even be surprised if one of these wide receiver needy teams traded up into the top 10 to draft him. That's something I actually considered mocking here, but based on how I have things falling, if he somehow fell to the Packers, I feel like it would be a no-brainer for him.
And this was I don't think we mentioned it. This was the trade that they got from the Raiders
Mhm.
for Devontae Adams. Next up, we got the Cowboys. I was kind of iffy on this pick. I really didn't know which way to go. I decided to go with the other edge rusher, George Karlaftis, however you say it, edge rusher. You already touched on him a little bit a couple picks ago, but they're another team. I was thinking offensive line too, and Zion was on. He kind of made it to my final two. I decided to go with the edge rusher. They had a top defense last year. I think they're going to add to it. Um, he could get to the quarterback and just it's. I think that they have enough firepower on offense to where I think they could get an offensive lineman or two a little bit later. Just take the best player, best defensive edge rusher at this point here.
Yeah, and I think that their offensive line did play a lot better at the end of last year. I don't want to say the Cowboys have the luxury of kind of picking, based on whatever player they like the most, but I believe their line has struggled when they've had some injuries. Their lack of depth has shown, so I think it would help them out to have a little more depth on the offensive line. So I have them going Zion Johnson here.
All right, and a team whose offensive line does kind of stink, the Cardinals. I got them taking Zion Johnson at
Oh,
24, which would actually be a little bit of a bite here because there's another player that I wanted to drop one more pick to the Bills at 25. But definitely need to protect Kyler Murray, especially with all the running around that he likes to do. And now that I mean, not that Chase Edmonds was not injury prone, but now that they don't have Chase Edmonds and they have an even more injury prone running back there, James Conner, they need to get a little bit of help there. So Zion Johnson, interior offensive line, mostly a guard and center, to the Cardinals at 24.
yeah, I think that the two most likely scenarios are offensive line or cornerback for the Cardinals here. Their secondary was absolutely horrendous. You had McDuffie going quite a bit earlier. I have him going at 24 here, and I think that the Cardinals will be pretty happy to get him in this spot.
All right. Another another team from the AFC East that needs some help in the secondary, the Bills. I mean, there's a handful of guys that I hope are here at this pick, but they're all a little bit higher. So I went with Kyler Gordon, cornerback. I'd love to have your pick, but unfortunately, I have him a few picks earlier to the Patriots. So Kyler Gordon, cornerback out of Washington. They need an outside guy. I've seen um, a few other names out there that are more like slot corners and safeties, but they definitely need an outside guy, especially if Trey White is not going to be there for the start of the year. But even if he is, they're still going to need another guy on the outside as a cornerback too. So Kyler Gordon is that dude.
Yeah, and Andrew Booth is the best corner on my board. It's the probably biggest need for the Bills right now, so it makes sense.
All right. Within the past couple weeks, the Titans have lost a couple interior offensive linemen, so I got them replacing those guys with Kenyon Green, the next offensive lineman on my board. Not much to say there. They're a team that likes to run the football. They got one of the best running backs in the league in Derrick Henry. They got to protect Ryan Tannehill and whoever succeeds him whenever his time is up. So Kenyon Green, like I said, they lost Saffold, lost the other guard that they had. So Kenyon Green is going to come in and hopefully replace him.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I didn't have a lineman that I felt comfortable mocking there. I was trying to find one that I thought would be decent there. There's nobody left on my board that I thought made sense for him. So I had him going Devontae Wyatt, who, if he didn't have the domestic charges against him, would potentially be. I mean, some people are saying as high as a top 10 pick, but at least a top 15. So the Titans have been known to take some chances on guys. Nose tackle is a position of need for them. And this is a team that I could see taking a little bit of a chance on a guy like this who has great upside. So it's a need for them. Is it their number one need? No, probably offensive line, but I think the value here would be too good for them to pass up if he makes it to this point.
All right. The Bucks, another team that they really don't have a lot of needs, but one of their biggest needs is on the edge. We're running out of edge rushers here too. I know I got about five gone already by this point. So next one up on the list, Hey Arnold, edge rusher. I got them going. They've lost a couple this offseason, or not necessarily lost, but they've got a couple that have not signed yet. I don't know if they're going to. JPP, not sure if he's going to be back. So I really like their linebackers. I really like their secondary. I think that they're an edge or two away from having a top three defense this year. So I have them going on that side of the ball, getting a pass rusher there.
Yes, and I have a trade mocked here. I have the Falcons trading back into the first round to take Matt Corral. Similar, and I think this is a
Just giving
spot.
up on Trask, huh?
Yeah. Well, no, not the Bucks. I have the Falcons
Oh
trading
yeah,
up.
fell. Okay, sorry.
No, not yet. Calm down. Kyle Trask will still have his chance, but yeah, no. I mean, this is. I mean, hey, that would kind of be doing what the Packers did if the Bucks did do that, I guess. But um, yeah, I mean, I think this is where you see teams who maybe they don't need a quarterback immediately, but they could benefit for having that extra year with the option, trading back up to get a quarterback. So that's why I have the Falcons trading back up because they don't need a guy that can start this year. They can afford to let Mariota start for a year or two while Corral sits and not learns from him, but just gets acclimated to the NFL game. So I think they're going to be one of the teams with the potential to trade back up into the first round and snag somebody.
And another plus is Golden Corrals are very popular in the South, so there's a lot of opportunity there.
I get sick even at the thought of eating at Golden Corral.
All right, so we got the Packers here. This is their original pick at pick 28. I think the next outside of outside of wide receiver, they need to get some more help on that offensive line. So I got them going with the offensive tackle Tyler Smith. You had him going a few picks
Hey, you have
earlier
him in
to
the
the
first
Saints.
round.
Who, Smith?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Oh, all right. Yeah, got him going to the Packers here. A little help there for Aaron Rodgers. I think that they actually help out Aaron Rodgers instead of picking a quarterback and a running back that are not needed. They're going with a wide receiver and an offensive lineman.
Yeah, I think offensive line is a good spot for them too. Once again, this is more a product of the way that my board has fallen to where there's not a great value for offensive line needy teams here. So I have him going with a defensive tackle here in Travis Jones. Read a little bit of interest in them. They would like to add him defensive line. He fits well into their system. So this is the part of the draft we start to see some guys sneaking into the first round that and it's really I don't a dart throw. I think a lot of times with these last few picks because you tend to see a lot of trades, teams trading back up into the first round, and so this is a spot that gets really tough for me. But I have them taking Travis Jones.
And I would probably consider this next pick one of those sneaks. I have seen him mocked in the first round. I not a huge fan of it, but they are replacing Tyreek Hill with another little speedster there, Jahan Dotson. They seem to like those little guys there. They already have McCole Hardman when they drafted McCole Hardman when they had Hill. Now that they don't have Hill and they have Hardman, they're going to take Dotson.
I love that logic. Yeah, I mean, I have him taking a receiver as well with Chris Olave. If he falls to this spot, I think they would love to add a guy of his caliber here. Fits into a similar mold that you were just talking about. So I like Olave here.
Next, oh, and that pick was from the Tyreek Hill pick too. This pick is their original pick for losing to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. They are taking in the secondary. They already lost. Well, they didn't resign Honey Badger, and then they lost Daniel Sorensen, which I think is a gain actually. So I got them taking Daxton Hill.
Oh,
This was the guy that I was thinking about to the Bills, but he is more of a safety or slot corner. I see him. You got him down as a corner. I got him as a safety. He's
mhm.
listed as kind of both,
Yep.
um, but definitely one of those hybrid corner safeties. Kind of go all over the secondary. But yeah, I mean they need to replace. I mean, even if they had Honey Badger and Sorensen, they'd still need secondary help. That's been a huge issue for them for I mean, years now. It's been bad back there. So Daxton Hill or whoever their top secondary corner safety is, I think is the pick here.
Yeah, and what's this? The third time maybe we had the same pick. That's really
Yeah, I think
not
so.
too. Yeah, that's not a lot, which makes it fun. Yeah, but pretty much everything you said. I actually considered having him go to the Patriots as well. You mentioned their need at corner. I mean, we have him listed at two different positions. He's a versatile guy. Chiefs 100% should spend one of these picks on improving that secondary, and he's the best available and realistically can move around and be a little bit of a chess piece for him.
All right. I got the Bengals, another team that has a I mean they've definitely brought in some help all over the place and they've definitely helped their championship roster, but one of their weaker positions, even after the offensive line moves, is now the secondary. So, Kyer Elam, cornerback, give him a little help back there. I like your pick, actually.
Yeah, and we talked about this when we talked about the bank a few episodes ago, but this is a team they do need a corner for sure. That's a position of need for them. But Ajabo, if he didn't get hurt during his pro day, I mean, he had top 10 hype. So this is a team in the Bengals who they're young. I don't think their window is closing. I think they can afford to take a chance on a guy like here. So I really like this pick for them. It really reminds me of when the Titans took Jeffrey Simmons, and people were like, "Oh, that's crazy." But I mean, it turned out all right. I think for the Titans, Simmons pretty much single-handedly kept them in a playoff game last season. So yeah, I like the value here. I like the chance. I think they're in a good position to do it. So many of their needs this offseason. So I have the Bengals going with Ajabo, who edge rusher from Michigan.
Yep, and after the show, we'll talk a little bit about a couple of these last picks. Um, my final pick, and I think we hinted at it a little bit earlier. This is from the Rams for the Matt Stafford trade. This is the one and only time that you're ever going to see the Lions picking at the 32 spot, and they're taking a quarterback, Desmond Ritter. He is personally my third. I actually like him as my second favorite quarterback, but he's not the board's second favorite quarterback.
Ooh,
Um, hey, but yeah. So it's good that we're ending on Ritter. And did I spell his name wrong, or did you spell his name wrong?
thank you, dude.
Oh, great. So I guess
I'm
we got
proud of
two
you.
different. I guess we got two different guys.
Yeah, they're actually different.
um, it's actually good to end on a corner or a quarterback here because the one thing that you'll notice towards the end of draft or the end of the first round, whether it's teams trading up or like you already alluded to it, some guys sneaking into the first round. Remember, part of the contracts is the 5th year option, and that's where David Ajabo is a nice pick there because
Hmm.
he is coming in injured. He might not play at all this year or much this year, but you're getting and I already said it earlier, the third most important position on an NFL team for um, 5 cap friendly years, basically. So, and that's where taking the quarterback here for the Lions is a great idea because even if he redshirts under Jared Goff for a year, he's still they have you're not paying crazy money for him to for a free agent quarterback or a top end quarterback. You're getting that extra year out of him to learn a little bit more. Um, that's where we could see other players. And I see you got a list there too, but Traylon Burks is a perfect example. You omitted him from your first round. I'm sure you're going to talk about that, but that's a guy that I think is a first round pick. That
Hmm.
if he's still there towards the end of the first round, a team could trade up and try to grab him and get 5 years out of him.
Yeah, potentially. The thing with wide receivers, I don't know if that's as relevant anymore. I mean, we've seen this offseason guys demanding contracts early, sitting out, demanding trades. So, as crazy as that seems, in a position with like receiver where guys tend to step in and play right away, maybe not a huge role, but they definitely are playing. I don't know if it's as relevant because these guys are demanding contracts earlier. So it almost feels like in a situation with a Jabo taking a quarterback, guys that are really kind of sitting out their first, maybe even second year, it makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely Traylon Burks is probably the one for me that hurt the most because I really feel like he's a first round prospect. But I really do believe that a few of these receivers are going to fall out of the first round just based on how the board plays out. I think it's a deep class. I mean, how many? I think I ended up having four of them in the first round and three others that I considered having go in the first round. So I think these are guys that, probably between, if it fell this way, Burks, Dotson, and Watson would be three of the top, I'll say 6 picks in the second round. I don't think they'd make it very far. You'd probably see a lot of action at the top half of the second round where teams are trying to trade up to get those guys. But those Traylon Burks, I really wanted to fit him in there, but I think one of these guys is going to be a casualty and fall out of the first round. I mean, I remember I always use T. Higgins as the example because I loved T. Higgins coming out of Clemson. I thought he was a surefire to be a late first round pick, and then he went with the first pick in the second round of the Bengals. I mean, so it does happen in the grand scheme of their careers. It's not going to matter, but yeah, I just think it's so deep that we're going to see some of these guys fall out because these teams are going to be debating, do I take a receiver when I can grab a great guy 10 picks from now, or do I go and grab that lineman that we really need? And those are going to be the decisions that teams are faced with. And I see them going the direction opposite of a receiver, even though there's some talent there. A few other guys I had listed here were N'Kobe Dean and Louis Cine, two Georgia boys who I think also have some first round potential. Um, I've seen a lot of people mock Cine to the Lions. He is a very gritty leader on that Georgia defensive side of the ball. So he kind of fits into what people envision Dan Campbell wanting. I wouldn't be surprised if they went in that direction, but I think it kind of depends on what their thought is on these quarterbacks. If they don't think there's any chance that Ritter, even Sam Howell, because I think Sam Howell's in play here as well. If they're looking for more of a traditional strong arm pocket QB, then I think that not Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter has a terrible arm. He's more of a accurate short throw kind of guy, but um, if they're looking for a guy with a big arm and big potential, I think Sam Howell's in play here as well. And he's another guy I considered having him go to the Falcons when they traded back into the first round. So I think he'll be in play here as well. But there's a lot of talent here. Every year, there's guys that fall out that are surprising, similar to there's guys that are going to be drafted in the first round that probably we didn't even mention, if we're being honest about it. And these last few picks, I would put money on somebody that we didn't even bring up sneaking into it. So I think this part of the draft is always super interesting because it's very strategic in how you play it.
Yeah, well, the one name that I don't have on my list that you have on yours, Devin Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
Not many linebackers. Actually, I think that's the only one that was taken between the two of us. You took him at the Patriots at 121. Um, and the reality is like any of these teams, like even the team like the Bucks who are pretty loaded at linebacker, they could use a guy, they could use a linebacker and the top one in this draft, but I just couldn't find a place to fit him in, or I felt like there was needs elsewhere. So he's going to be, if if my board is 100% accurate, which it probably is, he's going to be a top second round pick there. And then we didn't even touch running backs. I mean, Brees Hall is
Yeah.
another guy that could go towards the end of the first round. I mean, there's a couple teams there between the Bills, the Cardinals, the Bucks. Any of those teams could use a running back, and
I hope Ride Dog doesn't hear you say that.
yeah, no, yeah, Leonard Fournette, they're just gonna freeze him every offseason. But yeah, so we haven't even touched running backs at all, and that I mean, that's a position that you would think you'd want, not want, but like probably would aim for more in the first round because of that. I mean, all contracts aside, I know you said about the players holding out, but
Yeah.
if everything goes to plan, you get 5 years out of a running back. That's and then unfortunately that's about their max, and then move on to the next. So I mean that's a position that you could see go in the first round because of that fifth year option, but unfortunately we don't
Yeah, I
have.
mean, heck, you could see the Falcons trading up and instead of taking quarterback, taking a running back.
Yeah, they pick early in the second, so see how the board falls. um Other than that, I mean, we pretty much, I got maybe a handful of guys that you don't have listed. You got a handful of guys that I don't have listed, but we do agree in many places. I think we agreed we're at 4 times, and then another 4 or 5 times we're a pick away from each other.
Hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. Um, I think me and you definitely need GM jobs in the NFL. I don't know what team you want, but we should definitely be hired.
I like a good rebuilding project, so I wouldn't mind the Lions.
You got to bite kneecaps. Can you do that?
Yeah, I like Dan Campbell. I mean, I don't think that he's ever going to be a successful head coach because he was put in kind of a crappy situation. But I mean, I like the spirit.
All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Again, there's special episodes next week with the NFL draft. A couple of the regularly scheduled episodes are not going to happen, and instead it's going to be draft coverage. So make sure you tune in. Like I said, Jeff probably have the actual schedule listed on his Facebook groups and on Twitter if you wanted to tune into two of your favorite hosts, which are probably us. Um, but yeah, that's it. Anything else you want to go over?
I'm
We'll
ready to rock. We got to start scheduling some rookie drafts.
Yeah, definitely. And well, actually, you know what? No, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it next time. What we'll do is we'll take. Yeah, we've gone too long today. I was gonna say if you wanted to go through and talk about some fantasy relevance for the offensive players that we did, but we could spend another 2 hours doing that.
I probably, yeah, no, at least.
All right, so we will we'll have some rookies the next time that we're on the draft. Next time we're actually scheduled to be on, the draft will be done and over with. We'll be getting into some rookie camps, and before we know it, the 2022 season will be here. So, um,
Schedule release pretty soon too.
yeah, that's in May 12th. Did they say
May
that was?
12th. Yep.
All right, so that's going to be fun. I'm sure Jeff has something fun planned for that too. So we'll look out for that. But we got the draft next week, and that's it. So we'll see you guys next time.